NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett, attorney and Boston Globe columnist Kimberly Atkins-Stohr, Washington Post deputy national editor Philip Rucker, co-author of A Very Stable Genius and I Alone Can Fix It, and Republican strategist Susan Del Percio. So, Laura, the significance of this decision cannot be understated. Jurors heard the damning Trump deposition tape. Carroll's lawyer said that Trump was basically a witness against himself. Did Trump deciding not to testify make all the difference? Or was it really settled with the deposition and the way he handled that?
Well, you have to think that the deposition tape really mattered in this case. But as you said, it's not just the deposition tape. It's the fact that he didn't show up. And so the jurors are only left with what he said on that tape without him having an opportunity to sort of explain himself any further. And he was given that opportunity on more than one occasion. The judge, even as late as just this Sunday, said you can have another opportunity if you want to try to come. But he decided not to. And instead, they see him confusing E. Jean Carroll for his ex-wife, despite the fact that he had sworn up and down that E. Jean Carroll wasn't his type. Turns out she was his type. At least that's the argument that you hear Carroll's attorneys making persuasively, I think. And then you also hear him saying about what he said on the Access Hollywood tape, essentially responding to this idea that it was his ability to grab women because he was a star. He said it was fortunate. And that, again, that's something that Carroll's attorneys were able to hammer home in closing arguments because he wasn't there.
And Kim, the broader impact for sexual assault and rape survivors, as Carroll pointed out on Morning Joe.
The perfect victim always screams. She always goes to the police. She always writes the date in her diary. She always folds up and is a sad person. We smash that concept. I was born in the silent generation. We put our chins up and we went right ahead with a smile on our face. I have since learned we cannot stay silent. The more women who speak up, the more women will speak up. And the more women will speak up, we can change this entire culture of sexual violence. And we can start to put an end to it.
Kim, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we see this case as being a clear example of the impact of the Me Too movement, where you saw strength in numbers. Keep in mind that Carroll's two key witnesses were other women who also said that they were assaulted by Donald Trump. This case was brought due to New York changing its law to allow people who were victims of sexual assault as adults a one-shot option in a 1 year's time to bring a civil suit, even when those cases would otherwise be time-barred, because we learn from the Me Too movement that sometimes women are bullied or threatened or coerced into silence, especially standing up against people who wield power. And I think this was a key example of how that power dynamic can shift and justice can be sought.
And Phil, you spent so much time interviewing Donald Trump, covering Donald Trump. In the videos that he posted after the verdict, he is expressing outrage. He doesn't know who she was. Back on Truth Social. He's always believed he's invincible. How does this jury verdict affect him, just personally and politically?
Andrea, what's so important here is it's not just E. Jean Carroll. More than a dozen women have accused Trump of sexual assault or harassment over the years. We, of course, all remember the Access Hollywood video that came out in 2016 where he was on a hot microphone speaking openly about assaulting women. So, you know, there's a lot of context here, and yet this is the first time that Trump has been really held accountable in the legal system, the judicial system. He has now been found guilty of having sexually abused her and of defamation, and it's a civil case, of course, but he's going to have to pay $5 million. He says or his representatives rather say he will appeal. He calls it a disgrace, and yet the ugly truth for him is that the accountability is here after many, many years.
Susan, the verdict carries no criminal implications, but it carries a lot of political ones. Listen to the reaction from some inside the party that Dasha Burns, Stephanie Wu, and our Capitol Hill team has received just in the last, hours since the verdict came down yesterday.
I would tell you, in my 4.5 years serving alongside the president, I never heard or witnessed behavior of that nature.
He just is not suited to be president of the United States and to be the person who we hold up to our children and the world as a leader of the free world.
Do the Americans believe that the allegations are true? Probably most of them do, just like the jury did. Some will excuse it. I don't believe it's excusable and defensible.
And let me add one thing to this, because this happened on Fox News Radio today. This is Chris Christie. And he said, you know, his response to me was ridiculous, that he didn't even know the woman. Remember, that's what he just posted overnight. I mean, you know, how many coincidences are we going to have here with Donald Trump? I mean, he must be the unluckiest SOB in the world. He just has random people who he has never met before who are able to convince a jury he sexually abused them. I mean, this guy, it's one person after another, one woman after another. The stories just continue to pile up. And I think we all know he's not unlucky and that he's engaged in this kind of conduct. I mean, didn't he basically confess on the Access Hollywood tape? And that was a brilliant interrogation by the attorney for Jean Carroll to the deposition. You know, do you think you're a star? Right?
Yeah, it was amazing, and he admitted to a whole host of things, including basically announcing that he thought that Jean Carroll was his ex-wife, Marla Maples. But when I look at the political fallout from this, Andrea, I can't think but I'm so happy you showed the clips that you did of some Republicans stepping up. But right now, Mitch McConnell's head must be spinning because, like in 2022, you're going to have these primary fights for seats that should probably flip Republican. But they are going to be people who double down on Donald Trump, and they will support a person who has been found guilty of sexual abuse. And that is going to be a huge headache for a lot of Republican leaders and in states that are going to be toss-ups in 2024 on who they get to put on the ballot in a general election.
So, Laura, what comes next for Donald Trump in the legal front? What cases coming up next?
Yeah, his attorney was very bullish this morning with Savannah, saying, I will get this money on behalf of my client. But the reality is we all know this is going to be caught up in an appeal after another appeal. Remember, this isn't the first time she has actually brought this suit. She tried this suit when he was president for defamation, and that case was caught up in appeals for years. So I think you can expect to see a lot of legal wrangling here, and it's unclear how it will ultimately be resolved. But I should point out here, you know, the judge really gave him every opportunity to come, make his case, have his day in court. Even though this is a civil case, he really did give him all those opportunities. And so I think appeal could be really hard here, guys.
Laura Jarrett, Kimberly Atkins, Phil Rucker, Susan Del Pacio, thank you all so much.